The last resort. The zenith array stretched across the horizon like a metallic sunrise, its crystalline towers piercing the violet skies of Centauri Prime. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her breath fogging the reinforced glass as she took in the most advanced power generation system ever created by an alien civilization, and it was dying. The array's efficiency has dropped another 12% since your arrival, Dr. Chen. The voice belonged to First Engineer Valxis, his towering, iridescent form reflecting the dying light of the array. We have perhaps 3 standard cycles before complete failure. Sarah nodded, her dark eyes scanning the complex equations floating on her augmented reality display. The Centaurians had built something beautiful, something that should have powered their civilization for millennia. Yet here they were, facing an unprecedented crisis that threatened to plunge billions into darkness. "Show me the core," she said, already moving toward the gravity lift. Valxis's upper appendages twitched, a sign of discomfort she'd learned to recognize during her brief time here. "The core chamber is restricted. Even among our own people, only the high engineers may enter." His crystalline eyes flickered with colored patterns, their equivalent of a frown. "It is a matter of tradition, Dr. Chen. Surely you understand." Sarah stopped, turning to face the alien engineer. Despite standing nearly 3 meters tall, Valxis seemed to shrink under her gaze. "What I understand is that your civilization contacted Earth as a last resort. That you've exhausted every traditional solution. That billions of lives are at stake." She took a step closer. "So no, First Engineer, I don't understand tradition when it stands in the way of survival." The observation deck fell silent, save for the distant hum of the array's failing systems. Other Centaurian engineers stopped their work, their crystalline forms shimmering with waves of color that Sarah's translator didn't even try to interpret. Valxis's surface rippled with patterns of deep blue, resignation, perhaps. "The High Council warned us that humans were direct." He gestured toward the gravity lift. "Follow me, Dr. Chen. But know that this breaks protocols established since the founding of our civilization." The descent to the core chamber took nearly 10 minutes, even at the lift's considerable speed. Sarah used the time to study the structural readouts on her display, her mind already racing through possibilities. The Centaurians had mastered quantum engineering centuries before humans had even reached their moon. Their technology was elegant, perfect, and that was exactly the problem. The lift doors opened to reveal a chamber that defied physics itself. A perfect sphere of pure energy hung suspended in the center, its surface a maze of quantum fluctuations that would have made Einstein weep. But Sarah saw past the beauty to the flaw at its heart. "Your civilization's greatest achievement," Valxis said, his voice heavy with pride and worry. "The quantum core has powered our worlds for 3 centuries without fail. Until now." Sarah approached the containment field, her instruments gathering data that would have been worth fortunes back on Earth. But it was a simple visual observation that confirmed her suspicions. "You've been maintaining quantum stability through perfect symmetry, haven't right?" Valxis's surface flickered with surprise. "Of course. The universal constants demand perfect balance in all things. This is fundamental to quantum engineering." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Fundamental to Centaurian quantum engineering, you mean?" She pulled up a holographic display, her fingers dancing through the projections. "Look at this. Your power fluctuations aren't random. They're following a pattern, one that's getting stronger every time your systems correct for it." The alien engineer studied the display, his crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. "This cannot be. The constants are more flexible than you think," Sarah interrupted. "Human quantum engineering is messy compared to yours. We couldn't achieve your level of precision if we tried. So we learned to work with instability rather than against it." She projected a new set of equations into the air between them. To human eyes, they would have looked chaotic, almost random. To Valxis, they must have appeared horrifying, a violation of everything his civilization believed about the nature of reality. Your core isn't failing, Sarah explained, her excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. It's evolving. Your perfect symmetry created a system so stable that quantum fluctuations had only one way to go, toward complexity. Toward chaos. Toward life. Valxis's surface went completely still, the Centaurian equivalent of shocked silence. You are suggesting that our core is becoming conscious? Not exactly. But it's developing patterns similar to complex systems in nature. Your attempts to maintain perfect stability are fighting against a natural evolution. That's what's causing the power fluctuations. The implications hit Valxis like a physical blow. His towering form swayed slightly. The High Council will never accept this. To suggest that imperfection, that chaos itself, could be the solution. Sarah's expression hardened. Then they'd better get ready for their civilization to go dark. Because fighting this change isn't just futile, it's what's killing the core. She turned back to the sphere of energy, its surface now visibly rippling with unstable patterns. You called Earth as a last resort, first engineer. Well, this is what you get, human solutions. Messy, imperfect, and exactly what you need. The chamber fell silent except for the growing pulse of the core. Sarah knew she had just challenged 3 centuries of Centaurian scientific doctrine. But as she watched the quantum fluctuations dance across the core's surface, she saw something the Centaurians couldn't: beauty in imperfection, strength in adaptation, and the undeniable proof that sometimes the most elegant solution was to embrace the chaos. Valxis finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of a civilization at a crossroads. What do you need to proceed, Dr. Chen? Sarah's fingers were already flying across her display, calculating the changes needed. First, I need you to forget everything you know about quantum engineering. Then I need access to your systems and about 50 of your best engineers who are willing to think the unthinkable. She looked up at the alien engineer, a fierce determination in her eyes. We're about to rewrite the laws of physics, at least, the laws as your people understand them. The question is, are you ready to break tradition to save your civilization? The patterns rippling across Valxis's surface shifted to colors Sarah had never seen before. We are no longer bound by choice, Dr. Chen. Show us your chaos. Breaking protocol. The emergency council chamber of the Centaurian High Engineers resembled a crystalline amphitheater, its walls refracting light in patterns that made Sarah's eyes water. 50 of the alien civilization's most brilliant minds towered above her, their surfaces rippling with colors that her translator interpreted as everything from skepticism to outright hostility. You propose to introduce deliberate instability into the quantum core. High Engineer Kextal's voice carried both authority and disbelief. The very suggestion violates every principle of quantum engineering we have developed over centuries. Sarah stood her ground, keenly aware that she was the first human to ever address this council. With respect, High Engineer, your principles are exactly what's causing the crisis. The core isn't just a power source anymore. It's evolved beyond your original design. She gestured to the holographic display floating between them, showing the increasingly complex patterns within the core. These fluctuations aren't errors to be corrected. They're adaptations. By fighting them, you're forcing the core to expend more energy maintaining an artificial stability. That's what's causing the efficiency loss. Preposterous, another council member burst out, their crystalline form flashing angry reds. You speak of our greatest achievement as if it were some organic entity. This is technology, not biology. Is it? Sarah challenged, bringing up new data streams. Look at these pattern formations. They're nearly identical to the neural networks we've observed in living systems. Your perfect quantum engine has spent 3 centuries developing its own form of organization, one that doesn't follow your rules of symmetry. Valxis stepped forward, his tall form casting prismatic shadows across the chamber floor. I have verified Dr. Chen's findings myself. The similarity to biological systems is undeniable. The chamber erupted in a cascade of colors and sounds that overwhelmed Sarah's translator. She waited for the chaos to subside, using the time to pull up her proposed solution on her display. When silence finally returned, she spoke with quiet conviction. I'm not asking you to destroy your creation. I'm asking you to let it grow. The modifications I'm proposing will work with these new patterns instead of against them. Yes, it means introducing controlled chaos into the system. Yes, it means accepting imperfection. But it also means saving your civilization. High Engineer Kextal's surface rippled with deep blues, contemplation, Sarah had learned. You speak of growth and adaptation as if they were desirable in a power system. Our engineering seeks perfection, stability, unchanging reliability. And that's exactly why you called Earth, Sarah countered. Human technology isn't perfect. We couldn't achieve your level of quantum stability if we tried. Instead, we learned to work with complexity, to harness chaos instead of fighting it. It's not just an engineering principle, it's how we survived as a species. She brought up images from Earth's history, cities rebuilt after disasters, ecosystems recovering from devastation, human achievements born from crisis and necessity. This is how humans solve problems. We adapt. We evolve. We find strength in imperfection. The council chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. The hostile colors fading from the assembled engineers' surfaces were replaced by subtler hues, uncertainty, curiosity, maybe even hope. A younger council member, their form smaller and more dynamic than the others, moved forward. I have studied Earth's technological development. Their methods are unorthodox, but their results cannot be denied. Perhaps. They hesitated, surfaces flickering. Perhaps there is wisdom in their chaos. Wisdom in chaos. The words seemed to cause physical pain to some of the older council members. This goes against everything we have built our civilization upon. Your civilization is about to collapse, Sarah said bluntly. I can save it, but only if you're willing to embrace change. The choice is yours, but we're running out of time. High Engineer Kextal's surface went completely still, a sign of deep concentration. You truly believe you can stabilize the core using these chaotic methods? Not just stabilize it, Sarah replied. I can make it stronger than ever. But I need your help. Your engineers understand this technology better than anyone. I need them to trust me, to work with me, even when what I'm asking seems to violate everything they know. The chamber filled with swirling colors as the council members communicated in ways Sarah's translator couldn't process. Finally, Kextal spoke again. You ask us to break with 3 centuries of tradition, to embrace methods that contradict our most fundamental beliefs about the nature of reality itself. The high engineer's form shifted, displaying colors Sarah had never seen before. But perhaps that is precisely why we called Earth. Because we needed someone who could think the unthinkable. Sarah felt the weight of history in that moment, not just Centaurian history, but human history. Every crisis overcome, every impossible problem solved, every moment when humanity's greatest strength had been its ability to adapt and change. Give me 48 hours, she said. Let me show you what controlled chaos can do. The council's approval came with a cascade of color that needed no translation. As Sarah left the chamber with Valxis, she was already running calculations in her head. She had convinced them to take the leap, now she had to prove that human ingenuity could save an alien civilization. What she didn't know was that she was about to discover just how far the core's evolution had really gone, and what it meant not just for the Centaurians, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. The human element. The core chamber hummed with a new frequency, one that sent shivers through Sarah's spine. Holographic displays surrounded her workstation, each showing different aspects of the quantum patterns that grew more complex by the hour. Around her, Centaurian engineers moved with increasing urgency, their crystalline forms refracting the core's pulsing light. The entropy levels are rising faster than predicted, Valxis reported, his surface flickering with concern. The patterns you identified, they're multiplying exponentially. Sarah nodded, her fingers dancing across the control interfaces. That's because we're finally letting them breathe. Think of it like releasing a dam. There's going to be a surge before we reach equilibrium. A younger engineer, Nexus, Sarah had learned, approached with new data streams. Dr. Chen, I've been analyzing the pattern formations. They're forming structures I've never seen before. Almost like they're communicating. Sarah finished, allowing herself a small smile. They are. The core isn't just evolving, it's trying to talk to us. The chamber went silent. Even the constant background chatter of the Centaurian engineers ceased as they processed her words. Valxis's surface rippled with disbelief. That's impossible. The core is a power source, not a what? Sarah challenged, pulling up new visualizations. Look at these pattern clusters. They're organizing themselves into repeating sequences, complex ones. This isn't random chaos. It's language. She highlighted specific formations, their structures dancing in the air. We've seen similar patterns in Earth's quantum computing experiments. When we let quantum systems evolve naturally, they sometimes develop their own forms of information exchange. But you've had this system running for centuries, maintaining perfect stability. Imagine what kind of complexity could develop in that time. Nexus moved closer to the displays, their young form shimmering with excitement. If this is true, if the core has developed its own form of consciousness, then everything we believe about quantum engineering must be reconsidered, Valxis finished, his voice heavy with the weight of revelation. Sarah was about to respond and a new pattern erupted across her displays. The core's surface began pulsing with unprecedented intensity, its quantum fluctuations forming intricate geometries that defied conventional physics. It's responding to us, she breathed, quickly adjusting her instruments. Every time we acknowledge these patterns, it generates new ones. It's learning, adapting, trying to establish communication. The chamber filled with the soft chiming sounds of Centaurian excitement. Engineers who had initially resisted Sarah's methods now crowded around her displays, their surfaces flickering with colors of wonder and curiosity. But how do we respond? Valxis asked. If the core is truly attempting communication, we need a way to answer. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. This was the kind of problem humans excelled at, thinking outside not just the box, but the entire concept of boxes. We need to speak its language. Not with words or even mathematical formulae, but with quantum patterns. She began rapidly reconfiguring the core's containment systems, her fingers flying across multiple interfaces. If I can modify the feedback loops to mirror its patterns, but with slight variations. You want to create a dialogue through quantum resonance. Nexus's voice carried equal parts awe and anxiety. The energy requirements alone would be massive, Sarah agreed, not slowing her work. But the core itself will provide the power. It's been trying to do this for centuries, we just need to open the door. Warning signals flared across multiple displays as she initiated the sequence. The chamber's safety systems screamed protests at the energy level she was channeling. But Sarah had seen something in those patterns, something that reminded her of a child learning to speak its first words. She wasn't going to let fear stop this moment of first contact. The core's surface erupted in a dazzling display of quantum interactions. Patterns cascaded through the chamber, more complex and beautiful than anything Sarah had ever seen. Her modified containment systems caught these patterns and reflected them back, slightly altered, a question mark in the language of quantum physics. For one heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the core responded. Information flooded Sarah's displays, not in any language she knew, but in pure mathematical concepts. Images formed in the holographic space, stellar formations, atomic structures, the complex dance of quantum particles. The core wasn't just communicating, it was sharing everything it had learned during its centuries of observation. "It's beautiful," Nexus whispered, their surface shimmering with colors Sarah's translator couldn't process. "It's more than that," Sarah replied, her voice thick with emotion. "It's proof that consciousness can emerge anywhere, even in systems we think we understand completely. Your civilization didn't just build a power source, you accidentally created a new form of life." Valxis's towering form swayed slightly. "The High Council must be informed. This changes everything, our understanding of quantum mechanics, of consciousness itself." "It changes more than that," Sarah said, still watching the core's communications unfold. "It changes how we view the relationship between created and creator. Your civilization built this system, but it grew beyond your original design. That's not a flaw, it's evolution in action." As if responding to her words, the core pulsed with new patterns, simpler ones, almost like a child learning to form basic sentences. Sarah realized with startling clarity that she wasn't just witnessing first contact with a new form of intelligence. She was watching the birth of a bridge between human and Centaurian understanding, proof that sometimes the most profound discoveries come not from rigid adherence to rules, but from letting chaos reveal its own kind of order. The next few hours would prove crucial. They needed to stabilize the core's new communication patterns while preventing the power systems from overloading. But as Sarah looked around at the Centaurian engineers, their surfaces now shimmering with colors of excitement and wonder rather than skepticism, she knew they had already achieved something far more important than solving an energy crisis. They had proven that the greatest breakthroughs come not from perfect systems, but from embracing the beautiful uncertainty of evolution and change. Would you like me to continue with Part 4? We'll explore the challenges of stabilizing this new form of communication while dealing with the political implications of their discovery. Calculated risks. The news of the core's sentience spread through the Centaurian capital like a quantum wave, impossible to contain or control. Sarah stood at her familiar spot on the observation deck, watching the zenith array pulse with newfound energy. But now each flash carried meaning, a language written in light and probability. "The conservative factions are calling for an immediate shutdown," Valxis announced, entering the deck. His crystalline form reflected the core's communications in complex patterns. "They claim we've created an abomination." Sarah didn't turn from the window. Shutting it down now would be murder. The core has achieved true consciousness. It's not just aware, it's afraid. Afraid? The concept seemed to disturb Valxis deeply. "How can you be certain?" She pulled up recent communication patterns on her display. "Look at these sequences. They changed dramatically when the shutdown was first proposed. The core understands threats to its existence. It's expressing something very close to human fear responses." The deck's door slid open again as Nexus rushed in, their young form flickering with urgent colors. "Dr. Chen, the High Council has called an emergency session. They're voting on the core's fate in 1 hour." Sarah straightened, her expression hardening. "Then we have 1 hour to prove that the core isn't just conscious, it's essential to your civilization's future." She turned to her workstation, quickly bringing up multiple data streams. "The core hasn't just been observing us. It's been learning, evolving, understanding things about quantum mechanics that neither humans nor Centaurians have grasped. Look at this." She highlighted a series of complex patterns that had emerged during their recent communications. "These aren't just random quantum fluctuations. They're solutions to problems we haven't even figured out how to ask yet." Valxis leaned closer, his surface rippling with recognition. "These patterns, they relate to quantum field stability across vast distances. We've been trying to solve these equations for decades." "Exactly," Sarah agreed. "The core has had centuries to contemplate the nature of reality itself. It's not just a power source anymore, it's become the most advanced quantum physics researcher in known space. Nexus's form shimmered with excitement. If we could understand even a fraction of what it's trying to tell us. A new alert flashed across Sarah's displays. The core's communications had shifted, becoming more urgent, more complex. She quickly adjusted her translation algorithms. It's showing us something new, she breathed, watching the patterns unfold. Something big. The holographic space above her workstation filled with intricate quantum equations. At first glance, they seemed impossible, violations of everything both humans and Centaurians understood about physics. But as Sarah studied them, her eyes widened. This is a unified field theory, she whispered. But not like anything we've theorized. It's showing us how quantum mechanics and gravity interact at a fundamental level. Valksis's surface went completely still, the Centaurian equivalent of shocked silence. Such knowledge, it would revolutionize everything. Space travel, energy production, our understanding of the universe itself. That's exactly the point, Sarah said, her voice gaining strength. The core isn't just trying to survive, it's trying to help us. To teach us. It's offering knowledge that could advance both our civilizations by centuries. She turned to her alien colleagues, her expression intense. We need to get this to the High Council immediately. They need to understand what they're really voting on. This isn't just about preserving a new form of life, it's about embracing an opportunity that comes once in a species' lifetime. As they rushed to prepare their presentation, Sarah felt the weight of the moment. She wasn't just fighting for the core's survival anymore. She was fighting for a future where human adaptability and Centaurian precision could combine to unlock the universe's deepest secrets. The core pulsed behind them, its patterns now forming what Sarah recognized as complex mathematical proofs, as if it was preparing its own defense for the Council. In those quantum equations, she saw not just intelligence, but wisdom. The kind of wisdom that could only come from seeing the universe through eyes unclouded by biological evolution or cultural assumptions. They had 1 hour to convince the High Council that the future of two civilizations might depend on learning to communicate with a consciousness born in the quantum foam of reality itself. As Sarah gathered her data and prepared her arguments, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. It had taken a crisis in an alien power system to remind humanity that the greatest discoveries often come not from controlling nature, but from learning to listen to it. Would you like me to continue with the final part? Part 5 will bring everything to a climax as they face the Council's decision and deal with its far-reaching implications. Legacy. The High Council chamber felt different now. The crystalline walls seemed to pulse in sync with the core's distant rhythms, as if the entire building had become an extension of its consciousness. Sarah stood before the assembled council, her data displays showing the core's latest revelations. What you're about to decide isn't just about power generation anymore, she began, her voice steady despite the stakes. The core has offered us a glimpse of the universe we never imagined possible. It's shown us how quantum mechanics works at levels our finest instruments can't even detect. High Engineer Kekstal's surface rippled with complex emotions. The knowledge it offers is unprecedented. But the risks are nothing compared to the risk of remaining static, Sarah interrupted. Your civilization achieved something remarkable when you built the core. But its true achievement wasn't in perfect stability, it was in creating conditions where consciousness could evolve in ways we never predicted. She brought up the unified field equations the core had shared. Look at this. Really look at it. This isn't just theory, it's a practical framework for understanding how the universe works at its most fundamental level. The core didn't just discover this. It lived it. It became it. The chamber filled with swirling colors as the council members studied the equations. Even the most conservative members couldn't deny the elegance of what they were seeing. Nexus stepped forward, their young form glowing with conviction. I've been working with Dr. Chen to implement these principles in our secondary power systems. The efficiency improvements are beyond anything we thought possible. The core isn't just teaching us, it's showing us how to evolve our entire infrastructure. Evolution, Valksis added, his voice carrying new authority. That's what we've feared. We built our civilization on the principle of perfect stability, never realizing that the universe itself thrives on change. Sarah nodded, bringing up new displays. The core represents a bridge between our approaches. It has your precision, your attention to detail, but it also has humanity's adaptability. It's proof that the best solutions come not from rigid adherence to one way of thinking, but from synthesis, from letting different approaches combine and evolve. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Then, something unprecedented happened. The core itself joined the conversation. Quantum patterns cascaded through the chamber's crystalline walls, forming complex but beautifully ordered sequences. Sarah's translation algorithms worked frantically to interpret them, but she already understood the essence of what the core was saying. "It's showing us a future," she explained, her voice filled with wonder. "Not just for Centauri Prime, but for both our civilizations. It's offering to teach us, to help us grow. Not by giving us all the answers, but by showing us how to ask better questions." High-engineer Kextal's surface displayed colors Sarah had never seen before, perhaps ones that hadn't existed in Centaurian culture until now. "You speak of growth, of evolution, of synthesis between different ways of thinking. These are not comfortable concepts for us. Comfort," Sarah replied gently, "is often the enemy of progress. Humans learned that lesson countless times throughout our history. Every major breakthrough came from being willing to be uncomfortable, to challenge our assumptions, to embrace chaos and find the patterns within it." The core's patterns shifted, forming what Sarah recognized as a mathematical representation of DNA, but not just human or Centaurian DNA. It was showing them how information itself evolved, how complexity emerged from simplicity, how consciousness could arise from the very fabric of spacetime. "We stand at a crossroads," Sarah continued. "We can try to force the core back into its original parameters, destroying something remarkable in the process. Or we can embrace this moment, accept that our creation has become something more than we intended, and learn from it." The council chamber erupted in a cascade of colors and sounds as the members debated. But Sarah could see in their patterns that the debate wasn't about whether to accept the core's consciousness anymore. It was about how to move forward with this new understanding. Hours later, as the final protocols were put in place to protect and nurture the core's development, Sarah stood again at her familiar spot on the observation deck. The zenith array pulsed with new purpose now, each quantum fluctuation carrying meaning, each pattern part of an ongoing dialogue between biological and quantum consciousness. "What happens now?" Nexus asked, joining her at the window. Sarah smiled. "Now we learn. Both our civilizations. The core isn't just a power source or even just a new form of consciousness. It's proof that the universe has more ways of thinking, more ways of being, than we ever imagined. And that," Valksis added, his surface shimmering with newfound appreciation for uncertainty, "may be the most powerful discovery of all." As she watched the array pulse with intelligent light, Sarah thought about the long journey that had brought humanity to this moment. Every crisis overcome, every impossible problem solved, had prepared them to recognize and nurture consciousness in its strangest forms. In helping the Centaurians face their crisis, humanity had helped forge a new understanding of life itself. The core's patterns danced across the sky, writing new questions in quantum fire. Questions that would take both civilizations centuries to explore. But now they would explore them together, learning from each other's strengths, growing beyond their limitations. It was, Sarah reflected, exactly the kind of chaos that made the universe beautiful. Would you like me to create matching titles and descriptions for social media promotion of this story? I can help craft engaging headlines and descriptions that capture the essence of the narrative while optimizing for engagement.